So Wednesday morning, we're battling back-ordered parts problems, and Jeremy is livid.
Let's see what the excuses are today. Back order, Bob.
Mark recently hired a new employee named Bob, and he's about to find out what Uncle Bucko's all about.
So what you're saying is your sack's gonna hurt today.
It's going to be bad.
Mark ordered in a power brake booster and a set of brake drums for Mom and Dad's truck, and we need them before we can get this thing off the lift.
So you don't have a booster, you don't have my drums.
Yeah, not yet. Everything's falling apart.
Now, as usual, Mark has an ace up his sleeve.
Never once did I think it'd be a hard time to find a freaking booster for a box nose Chevy.
Well, right. The problem is there evidently is a shortage of brackets for the booster.
Mark brought in some parts out of his own project truck at home, but it's a different model year.
You know, with your ingenuity, I think you can make it work.
Well, we'll see.
So we've got that to work with. I got a few other pieces coming in. We might be able to make something happen. So.
All right. Well, let's get this stuff loaded up. William's chomping at the bit, and he's getting ready to do dyno pulls. I know it's not your fault, but still.
I'm directly involved, so.
Now I'm gonna go get my nuts kicked in. So somebody's gonna have to get kicked before I get kicked.
Yeah, oh, great. Get Tyler.
I already started kicking on
Oh,
him.
you did?
Jeremy's an equal opportunity nut kicker. He doesn't leave anyone out.
You set yourself on fire. You got brake fluid in your eye. Your car produces 2,000 PSI, which I find it hard to believe for a shit box like that. What the hell I need that much fuel pressure for anyway? That has nothing to do with the price of tea in China.
Mark then offers up the new guy, Bob, as a sacrifice.
Well, Bob's a little older. And
I'm not.
you're the
Age
lead
thing.
guy, so you're the one
Oh.
that takes the blows first.
All right. Well, I suppose.
That doesn't
I'll
work
take
like
one
that
for-
at our place.
It-
Why is that?
I don't know.
William should be the one getting his nuts kicked in.
I'll take one for the team.
I bet you will.
Meanwhile, back at the shop, Vicky's UPS truck delivery shows up, the one she's been waiting on for weeks and weeks. The Gasoline and Freedom 10 signs have finally arrived.
Look at that.
Finally here.
Finally here.
That wasn't the only thing she was excited about this morning.
This arrived today. I thought it might have been a Christmas present for me, but
That was my cue to hightail it back to the shop and vacate the premises as quickly as possible. All right, so I'm getting ready to go to Bob's. What are you going to work on while I'm gone?
Brakes, get the speedo cables in, check out and see if my cruise control works, the repair I did to the cruise control, and just pretty much try to, I gotta go back and kick Chumpy and see if he's got any of my shit that was supposed to be there this morning.
All right, well, do me a favor. When you're taking video, try and be really smooth because all your videos like this.
Well, I've been in a hurry, so.
Right, okay. So work on that and try not to get any of Kenny's ass crack. So I go out and start up the old 64 and let it warm up so I can head up to see Bob at the machine shop. And Bob's busy working on the 421, adjusting valves and trying to get this thing ready to put on the dyno as quickly as possible. Right now, I believe the plan is to try and get the engine assembled, set on the engine dyno, and possibly even fired up this afternoon, so long as we don't run into any other problems. And hopefully that's the case, because right now we are quickly running out of time to get this engine fired up and make any pulls on it before we have to get it home, get the block painted, and get it set down in the Malibu. And even then, we still have to modify the exhaust system to fit the new headers. So needless to say, we can't afford to waste any time. When I pulled in up to Bob's, I checked in on Nick, who runs the repair and maintenance side of the shop, and Dawn, who was busy cleaning up parts and knocking freeze plugs out of an old 400 small block for Bob. I brought a new oil filter adapter up for Bob to put on my 421, and Bob went ahead and installed it, and then got right back to adjusting valves according to the paperwork that came with these new Isky roller lifters. Once the valves were adjusted, Bob went ahead and topped off the crankcase with some 10W40 Brad Penn motor oil, and then cleaned up my intake manifold so we could check fitment on the block. We were concerned we might have to mill the ends of the intake after we decked the block 30 thousandths, and it was tight, but there's still enough room for silicone, and the intake is going to work just fine as is. So Bob goes ahead and installs the intake manifold and bolts it all down with new ARP fasteners, and then installs the lift plate on top of the intake so we can pick the engine up with the crane and start prepping the block to mount onto the engine dyno. There are 3 oil galley plugs in the back of the block that Bob had removed to deck the block. Once the oil galley plugs are installed, we can go ahead and put the flywheel on the back of the engine, as well as the blow-proof bell housing that we use to mount the engine to the dyno. Next up is the 2 motor mounts, one on each side of the block, and then finally the engine's ready to be set on the dyno stand. Once the engine's bolted down tight, Bob wheels the engine back to the dyno room and slides it in place using a pair of dowel pins to line it up. Next, the 2 halves of the dyno stand are bolted together, and then the drive shaft is attached to the flywheel. Once all that's done, it's time to start hooking up all the sensors and oil pressure lines so we can go ahead and prime the engine, check for oil pressure, and check for oil to the rocker arms with the valve covers removed. This is a very important step with small base circle camshafts because sometimes you have to scratch the lifters for oiling. Once the oiling system had been primed, it was time to put the valve covers on, remove the oil priming tool, and slide the distributor down in place. Next, I removed the engine lift plate off the top of the intake manifold, install the carburetor studs, the carburetor spacer, and the carburetor, and then Bob starts rolling the engine over with the distributor in to make sure it engages the oil pump. We had just bolted the headers onto the engine as the sun was going down Wednesday night. Bob and I were both pretty tired, but we didn't want to go home until we finally got to hear this thing run. So we turned the fuel pump on, checked for leaks, put water in the block, and then it was finally time to light the wick on this thing. Well guys, here we go. We're about to fire up the 421 for the first time. We had 93 octane pump gas in the fuel cell on the dyno. Bob's already flushed it out, and I think we've got 110 octane race gas in it for now because it's like 12.5 to 1 or 13 to 1 compression. Bob likes to fire these engines up on gas with his own carburetor. That's just what he's comfortable with because he's familiar with what the oil temperatures are supposed to be doing, EGTs and whatnot. So we're going to go ahead and fire this thing up on gas tonight and get it heat cycled. Here we go. I'm ready if you are, Bob. You ready? Yeah. Hit it. So the engine sounded pretty good last night when we fired it up. However, Thursday morning, Bob wanted to check over a few things because some of the EGTs didn't read like he thought they should. So Bob's working on that this morning while I check on things at my shop and get everybody going. You getting anything done today?
Yeah? What are you doing?
I'm getting ready to go to Bob's and finish up that engine.
It's about time.
About time?
I've already been to Chumpy's, kicked him in the nuts. Here, let's start over. I have a 1980 Chevy. I need a master cylinder.
So here's the situation. We need to get Mom and Dad's truck off the lift so I can get the Malibu in the shop and start getting it cleaned up for PRI. There's only one problem. we didn't have brake drums to put the wheels back on the back. So I've been applying pressure to Jeremy, who in turn applies pressure to Mark, who then basically just has to deal with it. But luckily the brake drums did come in yesterday, and Jeremy got the blue truck back on its own wheels and took it for a test drive down the road. Well, I'd hope you'd finish it up. I need my Malibu brought in here as soon as possible.
Oh, trust me, we all know.
So what do you got left to do on this thing?
I'm gonna fit the Hydro Boost, or not the Hydro Boost.
Oh, here we go with the Hydro Boost
The
again.
vacuum booster.
Hydro Boost and vacuum booster is not the same thing.
I know.
But you always say Hydro Boost, and it's definitely not a Hydro Boost.
You know why that is?
Because you're dumb. Listen, I need this damn thing done.
Yeah, I know.
Chop, chop.
I'm chopping.
After I turned up the heat on Jeremy, I hopped in the 64 and I head up to Mount Vernon to go see Bob at the machine shop. While I was on my way up, they did manage to get the truck out of the garage, and Kenny brought the Malibu in to start getting it cleaned up, and Jeremy started going through all the parts to make sure we've got everything we need to put this thing back together. And this is when I realized I have to choose my words wisely. I got a text from Jeremy asking if I'd like to have my $1,500 stainless steel headers painted. I do appreciate the forward thinking though. Jeremy did check out some exhaust pieces Mark has that we may need tomorrow, and he also noticed that my radiator hoses do not fit the new radiator.
Well, you've done it again, Mr. Magoo.
I did.
Luckily, Mark had the hose that we need in stock down at the parts store, and Jeremy brought it back and test fit it. Then he and Kenny got everything cleaned up underneath the hood, and it looks like we've got everything lined up as best we can possibly line it up to have this car ready to go back together in a jiffy as soon as we get this engine off the dyno. By the time I got in the door up at Bob's, he'd already put the new ATM E85 carburetor on the intake manifold, flushed out the fuel system, and filled the fuel cell with E85. We went ahead and put another heat cycle on the engine, and then Bob hooked up the throttle cable off the dyno to the carburetor. At this point, the only thing we've got left to do is to check for wide open throttle, and then it's time to fire it up. Bob carefully brings the engine up to operating temperature to prepare to make its very first dyno pull. The engine sounds incredibly crisp and much better on E85 than it did last night on gas. Bob makes a quick, conservative pull and then checks oil pressure. And although it sounded good, I can tell Bob's got a little bit of concern about what he's hearing and what he's seeing.
The corrective power was 468 at 5,500. The torque was 470 at 5,000.
Although the oil pressure and all the vital signs of the engine are good, the horsepower level is very disappointing. After another heat cycle, we decide to fire the engine back up, bring it up to temperature, and make one more pull to see if the horsepower is consistent with what we got the first time. After a second disappointing pull, I decide to start pulling plugs, and that's when I realized that the plugs show there's not nearly enough timing in it. Somehow I had managed to set the ignition timing at only 20 degrees instead of 36. So I turn the timing up and it's time to try again. With 36 degrees of timing, the engine spits out some really healthy numbers. 540 horsepower and over 520 foot-pounds of torque. Now normally, I would be chomping at the bit to spend the rest of the day and probably all night on the dyno, dialing things in on this engine. But unfortunately, we have a deadline to meet, and that means we don't have time to make any more pulls. The engine made a healthy number with the carburetor right out of the box with no tuning whatsoever. Our main goal was to make sure that the engine was healthy and didn't have any major problems. And we achieved that goal, and we know that the engine's gonna make good power. So we go ahead and pull the engine off the dyno, set it on a cradle, set it down in the back of the 64, and it's time for me to turn and burn back to the shop so we can get this engine unloaded, masked up, and get it painted tonight so that the paint can set up overnight and we can hopefully get the engine set down in the Malibu first thing tomorrow. I called Kenny and Jeremy back at my place and told them I'm on my way. Get everything ready, find a chain, and get the shop opened up because I'll be there in about 45 minutes. Luckily, I managed to make it back to the house before the sun went down. Me, June, and Chevy went straight back to the John Deere, fired it up, and brought it around front so we can use the front end loader to pick the engine up out of the back of the 64 and bring it in the shop. Jeremy and Kenny had both already left for the day, but they both came back to help me get it unloaded, get it off the engine cradle, and get it hung by the cherry picker so that Kenny could go ahead and start masking the thing up so that we could go ahead and get the engine primed and painted, and then let the engine sit overnight and allow the paint to cure. The only question is, what color should we paint it? It's already been painted blue once and black. Well, well, well. Look what we have here.
I've been busy.
Yeah?
Do you like it?
Yeah, it looks good.
Thank you.
Question.
What?
How many of my extension cords have you robbed?
I bought a brand new one. New.
So you took my hint in the last video.
Yes.
All right, so are we going to do this giveaway on this carburetor tonight or what?
Sure.
Well, we need to get that done.
All right.
So how are you doing this deal?
Just like we did the last one.
Random.org or something?
Yep, random.org. I'll put in the beginning order number and the ending order number.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And then, boom, we'll have a winner.
All right, I'm ready. How many minutes do you need?
Settle down.
Really? I feel as though you were not prepared for this.
Not you told me to wait on you, so now I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go.
Are you going to refresh it a few times?
What?
That's a thing. You have to refresh the screen. Oh, you're doing it on your phone. I thought you were doing it on the big screen right there. That's not the big... Oh. Have you got this ready?
Oh, I did. Now you made me refresh
Oh, my
it.
God.
It was your idea? You're supposed to refresh it before you do it so everybody knows you're not freaking scamming people.
Oh my gosh.
You know, you've got the reputation of the scam artist. What are the numbers?
I'm doing it. 8.
Oh my God.
Okay.
This is so rigged.
Okay, ready?
Yes, I've been ready.
Generate.
Generate. I can't even see it.
3, order number 7382.
7382 is the
gonna
winner?
I'm gonna punch it in here and see who it is.
Oh boy.
7382.
People are going to say this is rigged. She's grumpy. She was actually laying in there in her chair, fell asleep, and now she's grouchy.
I was waiting on you to do
I
this
was
stuff.
busy. I was working.
I know, so I'm sorry I fell asleep.
What's the winning ticket?
David Bridgewater.
I don't know why you're holding your hand up there. I can't see it anyway.
Oh, people always say, oh, you're showing their address.
David
Bridgewater.
David Bridgewater. Where's he from?
He is from Jinx, Oklahoma.
Jinx, Oklahoma. So David Bridgewater from Jinx, Oklahoma just won a brand new ATM carburetor. So I'll be making contact with him to get his information so that I can get him in contact with everybody at ATM and they will get his carburetor out to him. Oh boy, what are you up to now?
I'm feeling generous. We're gonna
You're feeling generous. You're going to give away a poster. So it's a poster of the 55 down in front of Shell's Diner.
And I'll make sure you sign it before I mail it.
Oh, really?
And let's draw for a dozen Christmas cookies.
What? Yep. No, come on. Not the Christmas cookie thing again.
Yep.
Oh.
All right.
Hurry up.
We hit generate. Generate. 8141.
8141. What's this for? Is this for the poster?
Yep, poster.
All right, 8141. This is for the poster.
Is Daryl Pitts from Mountain City, Georgia.
Mountain City, Georgia. Daryl Pitts.
He's getting
A scrap. Oh.
a poster.
Hi, scrappers.
Now, let me
So
hit
Daryl
generate.
Pitts from Georgia
Mountain City, Georgia.
is getting a 55 Chevy poster. And then
We hit generate.
do you really need to give away a dozen cookies?
Yep, because I said I was going to do it last month.
All right.
Generate.
Last month was turkey cookies. What are you going to do this time?
Christmas cookies, obviously. 155. And that is David Brewer from Proctorville, Ohio.
Huh. Oh, boy.
David Brewer.
Where's
from-
Proctorville?
I don't know. I don't know.
So David Brewer from Proctorville, you're getting a dozen cookies.
Yep.
And who's the guy getting a 55 Chevy poster from Georgia? You didn't write it down, did you? You've already lost it. Oh, my God.
I gotta write it down.
I'm not doing this right now. Are you serious? You didn't write it down?
You're rushing me.
Oh. I just can't believe I have to do this. His information so that I can get him in contact with everybody at ATM. You're feeling generous. You're going to give away a poster. What? No.
Oh, come on.
Oh. All right, now that I had to go back and rewatch our video to figure out who in the hell won everything, do you have everything written down now?
It's written down.
Okay, who won the carburetor?
David Brewer. Wait, sorry.
Are you shitting me? I thought you wrote it down.
That was the cookie winner. Start
Oh
at the top.
my god.
Back up. Just rewind that.
No, I'm putting it in here. Who won the carburetor?
David Bridgewater.
Who won the poster?
Daryl Pitts.
And who won the cookies?
David Brewer.
Are we done?
Yes.
What?
I'm sending you the picture of the new shirt that's online.
Why didn't you say this earlier?
I just remembered.
Are you going to tell me? Are you going to tell the people?
It right now, so
But
you
we
can
can.
play the video.
Oh my god.
Okay, I got the picture. It just showed up. Would you like to talk about it now?
Yeah, so it's the gas pump girl, the Vicky approved gas pump girl shirt. And it's online now. And they will ship mid-December. So they will be, if you order one, you will get it for Christmas.
You are never allowed to fall asleep before the end of the video again.
Why do I look a little puffy?
No, it's not the way. Well, I mean, you look a little puffy, but you're all over the place. Are we done now?
Yeah.